You're listening to Fandom, where I, your host, RJ Skeens, and I guess this week, Pat's our host,
That is right.
and our good friend and other co host,
Marcus.
take a deep dive into all things pop culture related. This week, we're going to be throwing a curveball at you, or I should say, like an armbar or something like that, because we're diving into one of Pat's loves, MMA. And, well, I'm the dumb one this week because I don't know a whole lot about this sport.
That is
So-
true. It would be a nice little left hook, I think is what you're trying to say, you know?
Hey, yes, it's a nice left hook.
But
See, this is why you're taking the reins. I'm learning today.
yeah, or right hook, who knows? But yeah, we will be talking about mixed martial arts, most certainly. So this is kind of the interesting thing. MMA. So what do you think? Does UFC stand out in your mind there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
When I
that's
think
gonna
of
be
MMA, I immediately think like UFC, and then it's like, yeah.
That's like
There's a
the
lot of-
only thing I think. What's
All
another?
right.
What's another league
Are they
that does?
they're
There'd be-
different, aren't they? Are they?
yeah, there are a lot
Okay.
of different it would be so there's a difference kind of so everybody's like, okay, you get UFC. UFC is kind of like it's the brand, it's the overall,
It's
it's
the
a
generic.
It's the face.
yeah, it's a fight promotion. So
I gotcha.
Gotcha.
It's a fight
so
promoter.
not all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles or whatever that saying is. It's kind of goes for the UFC. So the UFC is a
Except
MMA.
in UFC, they're octagons.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's true. But the MMA sport itself is broken up into a lot of different fight promotions. There's Bellator, there's ONE FC that I believe is I don't know if it's Japan, but it's out in Asia. But the UFC is kind of like, yeah, like the top dog of that. And so that's what mixed martial arts is basically bringing all of those together into
Just
one
bringing everything into one melting
fighting
pot.
sport. Let's take you back to some of the greatest highlights in UFC history. So we're just going to start off with that first one in your queue on that little thing. If you want to go and hit it, and just let me know when you hit it.
I hit it.
Highlights.
All right, we're
McGregor
going to
versus
on
Nate
this
Diaz.
day. Yep. Okay, so what we're watching right now is this is one of those bigger fights where everybody's been high on Conor McGregor. He's been, tearing it up, and him and Nate Diaz, I think Nate Diaz called him out at some point.
Conor McGregor, I'm gonna fight your
This was one of the first fights that I like really got into because it was it showed both of their characters. So, Conor McGregor's being on the top of his like entire hype, and Diaz has always been like this scrappy dude who's I don't know, he's just a shit talker, and he talks a little funny, which is kind of, I don't know, it adds to his charm, but he's just like, a brawler. It was one of the bigger upsets because everybody, as I was saying, was really high on Conor McGregor. In the beginning, McGregor's actually really like putting it to him. You can see that like Nate's got a huge cut over his eye. He's got
doing
blood
some
everywhere.
work. Yeah.
And McGregor's really putting it to him. Like, you can check it out right now. But the whole thing was that there's a lot of aspects that go into actual like fighting. And one of them is, even though it's like, okay, this dude's like doing a lot of damage, the other guy can like weather that storm and actually is like, he's not exerting as much energy. He starts to turn it back around on Conor McGregor. And at this point, Conor McGregor had been really beating his opponents in like the first couple rounds. He never really had to go into these long, hard, I guess, strenuous bouts. Yeah, it was a quick finish. It was a lot of like,
quick finish. He's more about
Yep.
the short sprint, not the marathon.
yeah.
Okay.
And of course, like, he had also been kind of bred up and brought to be a star. And Nate Diaz was kind of always this like strain, that he's always an entertaining fighter. He was a lot of, everybody's like a fan favorite.
So
Yeah.
at the time, McGregor was viewed as sort of like unorthodox when viewed by like casual fans, but the announcer just called a lot of his moves brilliant. What makes his style brilliant to some professionals while it seems out of the normal for like a casual UFC fan?
That's an interesting question because honestly, I wouldn't know the total answer. I think that he stands for the most part, if you look at this, like, back up a little bit, a lot of what he does is Southpaw by the look of it. So Southpaw is when you've got your right leg forward and your left leg back. And so your jab is coming off your right hand. So your left hand is really the power, puncher.
And isn't he naturally left-handed?
I think that's why he's a southpaw. But what he does is he's got these really quick. I'll demonstrate again. I'll pull it back to 106. Okay, so he leans in with that left, and he tries to punch. He misses him at about 46 seconds, but it's that. He's got that jab, and then that he comes across with that left, and he sinks into it, and that's really where that's how he defeated another fighter to win the welter or the featherweight title.
You see, he has a lot of power behind that left arm.
It's that left arm, and it's when people step in, and so the UFC really hadn't seen a star like that, where he was using like witty commentary and like actual like skill, and like he was just a really entertaining fighter overall.
It was the full package for someone who was leading. Like for Dana White, when he saw McGregor, he was like, "Oh my god, I can market the hell out of this guy. He's strong. He has a personality." He saw the opponents that were up, like Diaz and Aldo and all them, and it's just like, this is easy money.
And so he also, it was one of the Irish really come through. They're really hardy, powerful people in that respect. And when they had their first, I believe he's the first champion from Ireland, and to do it in such fashion and put Ireland such on the map was really like his thing. But in this one, Diaz comes through, and Diaz actually submits McGregor because he was able to take him into those long rounds and to like weather him down. And what was, I think, my favorite part, if we go to 224. Okay, so he comes up and he starts to like beat him, and he puts him in a rear naked choke here, and you see McGregor just like, that's something that you hadn't really seen in McGregor. And the way fucking Diaz stands up and fucking bleeding out of his face, like, what's up, motherfuckers? Like, I don't know. That was just something to be like, hot Skippy, dude. That motherfucker just defeated like
to turn
the man
around
that was
and
on
win
top
like
of the
that
world.
That's badass. If he didn't choke him out, I think he would have. At that point, he probably would have. He probably would have had a hard time finishing it, I feel.
Is that just because his ground game is stronger than McGregor's, or did he just catch McGregor off guard?
No, McGregor was, as I said, like he had been mostly put against opponents who were going to go out there and like really wanted to mess Conor up. And Conor had been, he's a powerful striker. He's kind of unorthodox the way he stands, and he kind of cuts. He's a very sharp down that, right on the chin kind of thing with that left hand, as we said. So he hadn't really been tested in that way, I don't think, as far as I'm aware. One of the things is Nate Diaz is known for jiu-jitsu, but you're grappling more. There's a lot of more areas where you're trying to be.
You try and have leverage over your opponent rather than just beating them senseless. Yeah,
but it's also it's like it's monitoring your gas tank, like your physical gas tank. Like different fighters have different gas tanks. And certain people are really good at, I guess, power punching. And so they just like, they hope they can get the person out in the first round, because after that, they've got a lot of time that pulls them down, and they're not as strong after a while. That's one of the things that McGregor was not prepared for. And Diaz is a jiu-jitsu guy, so he's kind of ready to go for that. And to be clear, it's obviously not just a fighting style. It was just that Nate is also like, I don't think that Nate Diaz has been finished inside of the UFC Octagon.
Oh, wow.
So he's never been, I don't think he's ever been knocked out necessarily. He might have been submitted, maybe. He might have been, but I don't think he's actually been knocked out. And so he's one of the guys who's been able to like, there's been people that they've called his fights with the TKO, but it was just because his fucking, he's got so much scar tissue over his eye. You saw, obviously, it came probably from mostly the McGregor fight, but he's also just fighting all the time. And, but let's go to the next link if we could.
All right.
And this is just a couple of interesting KOs. This one actually, I think, happened in the last couple of years. Let's just play the clip. This is one of the crazier physical feats and knockouts that happened. This is Joaquin Buckley versus, I don't know the guy's first name, but Kasanganai.
They are so even on total strikes at the moment.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
He looks like Bubbles from
was
Trailer Park Boys.
Freaking
Fucking want
crazy.
one?
If you look at a really good quality version of that video, he just goes right. His eyes roll back in his head, and that's just one of the more
hardcore.
intense ones. I'm gonna take us to this third clip.
I had to rewatch that. That's nasty.
That
So he
was
literally
freaking gnarly.
he catches his foot, and the dude with his foot uses the guy's like leverage that he's got on his foot to turn
His
kick
hips
back
and his torso.
Yep.
Crazy.
Snaps that dude back, and he is Kasanganai's done.
It's like some Spider-Man stuff, dude.
This next one is it's Gary Goodrich versus Paul Herrera. This is a very, very early UFC. And so back in the day, the UFC was kind of more, it was just kind of more Wild West, you know? It was literally like karate dojo guys coming in against WWE type wrestlers who were trying to fight. So this is an example of a jiu-jitsu guy versus, I think he's like a wrestler or like a boxer or something. No, he's a wrestler for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Good night.
Absolutely.
Yep. That was
Have
brutal.
a nice. I'm gonna watch that again because
Go for
that
it.
guy looked like Joey from Friends, and Joey just took a nap.
He did. That was Paul Herrera getting absolutely gobsmacked with elbows by Gary Goodrich.
Dude, he seriously looks like him.
Yeah, I gotta see that again.
Good night, Matt LeBlanc.
So what you just witnessed, that move in jiu-jitsu, he did what is called a crucifix. You've got their arms spread across their body, like obviously a crucifix, and you're able to sit on one arm and push it out with the other one, and you can just beat them senseless because they're literally sprawled out, spread eagle in front of you.
Just completely
And
open,
from underneath, where he's pulling back on the arm like an arm bar, but he's got the other arm across in a pin, and just was able to elbow his way into victory there. That was more the old Wild West version of UFC. Now we're gonna watch another sick thing, just like the Joaquin Buckley KO here in the next one, which is Pettis versus Henderson.
And Steph and I cannot think of a better way to bring down the curtain.
Oh my, that was bad. That was like some Spider-Man stuff.
Apex needs this.
Right? That guy looks like the wrestler dude from The Longest Yard, the remake.
So
That's how ripped he looks.
Looks like a laundry woman from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, so that was Anthony Pettis' super kick, or the ninja kick right off the side of the cage. That was pretty popular. I think that happened back in like the early 2000s to 2000, or not early 2000s, but the late 2000s, 2010s. That was one of the other things that people really got a kick out of was those type of highlights. That was before. So this is another thing to think about. UFC and things like this have been kind of on like the fringes of sports entertainment.
Yeah,
it's never been, and it like a couple of years ago, it literally got picked up by ESPN and was and like one of the forefront contributors to the ESPN Plus app. So,
I can see that definitely.
That was, it's really,
it's exploded.
It's kind of, it's gone.
Boom.
Just the fan base and like what it does and how it's kind of grown over time. And I'm going to get into obviously the nitty gritty and the history a little bit after this, but let's go to the last video here. Masvidal versus Askren. Now, do not blink and start at the beginning because you will miss all of it. Just let me know when you're ready and we'll start that video.
Okay,
I'm ready.
I'm there.
Okay, so this is Masvidal versus Askren now. So Masvidal, this is from 2019, I believe. I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but so Ben Askren was a multiple time champion of I think he fought in one FC and Bellator, and he was like the champion in, I believe, Bellator. I'm not sure. Anyway, he came and he got signed and he won his first fight in the UFC against Robbie Lawler. And then he came in and he's he's kind of a funny guy, but he's like, he pushes people's buttons in this weird way. And he was talking shit to Jorge Masvidal here, who is like an OG Florida street fighter who actually got his he kind of got brought up in who is that guy's name? Kimbo Slice's neck of the
I was
woods
gonna say
in
no way.
Florida.
You're gonna say Kimbo
Yeah, no,
Slice.
there's
That's
actually
awesome.
there's
You
a
said
video if
Florida,
you
and I
look
was like,
up.
there's no way he's gonna say it.
I watched it. I did not know at the time that he was this guy that I'd watched like on this World Star a couple times. It was called like Jorge versus, I don't remember who it was, but it was Jorge Masvidal when he was like a teenager, basically fighting this dude in the backyards of Florida. But he's here to anyway. So him and Masvidal, or him and Askren, did not get along because he's like an OG brawler, and Ben Askren is a wrestler who came over and was like already a big star and kind of like just talking shit to him. So you'll see what happens when you piss off a guy who wants to beat the shit out of you.
And these guys just flapping gums at each other. Any chance they get. The fight clock is...
And he knocks him out.
Yep.
Is that the quickest knockout in UFC history?
Now, this is a story that I love telling because it's absolutely hilarious. But the first time
he turns around and taps it.
The first time I ever watched this fight, I was actually really excited to see it because I had seen Masvidal talk about Ben Askren on Rogan, and Ben Askren had just come over and actually started making a big name for himself as a UFC fighter. Like, it felt like he was going to come in and kind of sweep the whole welterweight division, which is what he was in. It just seemed like that because he had been so dominant in those other promotions. So he comes in and he's a wrestler. So he immediately goes for a takedown and he drops his head, and Masvidal basically pre-planned that he was going to flying knee him in the head and knock him out. And when I was watching this, I literally, at the moment it started, I'm like, the first 10 seconds, nobody ever, they kind of dance around each other for the most part and try and feel each other out before that. I literally looked down at my phone and I just look back up and it's already over and I don't even know what happened. And I'm like, what in the hell? And it was one of them like pivotal. It was, or no, I didn't pay. Did I? I must have. I don't remember, but all I know is that happened. And I was like, I literally was like, what? Like, at least, they got the playback and everything, but I literally missed the moment. I was going to watch live the moment that Ben Askren got his ass knocked out, and it didn't happen because I was looking at my phone.
That's crazy.
So that's a funny thing.
Dude, he literally just left himself wide open. He's like, yo, that was not smart.
I mean, yeah,
he not obviously like research his opponent. Are you allowed to like do background like research on your opponent so you know their fighting techniques and how to
you can
them and stuff?
It's actually called watching tape, which I guess is also in
in
football and things. Yeah. So they go and they watch like people's fights, like not all of them, like since everybody in fighting basically is their individual fighter and player, they all have their own different approaches. Some don't, some do. Masvidal obviously read into it, and I think that Ben Askren was just, it had always worked for him in the past, so he was just, let's do it again, And he even said that because Ben Askren would actually go on to lose his next fight and then end up ultimately retiring. He had kind of had bouts with like injuries, and I think he had to get his actual hip replaced.
Oh, God damn.
He's also the one who got knocked out by Jake Paul.
It really?
Yeah, Ben Askren.
He's one of the 3 janitors.
Yeah. Ben Askren ended up later on fighting Jake Paul and getting knocked out. I agree. I really liked.
He should have stayed retired and not lost to Jake Paul.
I liked the resurgence.
This is me realizing he lost to Jake Paul.
Oh yeah.
Is Masvidal still in the UFC?
We'll see some more. Yes, he is still in the UFC. We'll see some more of him because he went on. He became a huge star off the back of that. Which was pretty interesting. But we're going to go into the history of the UFC here next. The UFC actually began as an event kind of styled thing in 1993, and it was actually held in Denver, Colorado at McNichols Sporting Arena or Sports Arena.
I saw my first hockey game there.
Nice.
Yeah, right. That's a long time ago, and that was
a long time ago. That just aged me really bad.
Almost 30 years.
I don't even know where McNichols Sports Arena is anymore. I don't even know if it's still standing. It's probably demolished.
I don't think it's standing anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, so this tournament / competition was actually used as a way to find out the best martial art. Because back in the day, it was kind of like karate guys would do karate, taekwondo guys would do taekwondo, wrestlers, etc. You know, it was kind of everything was kind of split, whereas mixed martial arts is really kind of unified all aspects of like a certain type of fighting within a certain rule set. So in the first few events, had very little rules, like basically no biting, groin strikes, or like gouging out eyes and stuff. I don't think hair pulling was in there, or just none of that type of thing. But you could kick an opponent while they were like on their knees. You could do 12 to 6 elbows, which is like literally from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So like straight down elbows.
Dang, son.
There was I mean, I think headbutts were technically, I don't know if they were totally legal, but so it was pretty
Nobody
rough.
wins in a headbutt.
No, exactly. And a lot of them were kind of
except Tanjiro.
Hey, facts.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's kind of just interesting to see the eras of UFC has undergone in like 30 years. It's pretty staggering. So let's go to, if you look down at this next thing, it'll say Yarborough versus Hackney.
No, who approved this fight?
How are you looking at it now?
What?
Yeah. So now watch this. This is one of those, as I was saying, the UFC kind of started out and it was a little bit like sideshow fights.
Is that dude wearing like a tablecloth?
No, that's the gi pants. Yeah, so this is the UFC 3. Yeah, they even had sumo wrestlers were in this, trying to be the best martial art ever.
I'll be honest, that dude looks like a badass. Like he would fuck you up.
That is a brick shit house of pure
618 pounds.
600.
There's so much muscle on that man.
Hell
dude.
no, dude.
This is a Kempo karate guy is about to go up against him.
Look at this dude.
This is in the 90s, right?
Yeah, this is like 90, probably 93, 94.
Literally looks like that's so 90s.
He's getting visions of his entire childhood right now while they announce his name.
But literally, man, it was like this weird style of competition tournament sort of thing where sumo wrestlers. Oh, that's Big John McCarthy, the referee right here. He was there for all the UFCs. And as I said, the dude in the black is Kempo karate.
Oh.
Oh.
Absolutely throttled.
Oh, the other thing is so in normal rules now you can't hit the back of the head. Now anything. Ooh, and he actually fell through the gate, but
did he win?
Now any strike that's behind the ear, as long as it hits the ear, it's technically legal, but if it goes behind the ear, it's back of the head strike.
So why is this legal? I feel like it's home field advantage. This guy is literally in a cow pen.
Well, that's the fun of it. Right now, these fights were kind of as I said, unorthodox, and they were just trying to pair people up. They didn't really have weight classes either. But what's interesting is that one of the UFC was also started by the Gracie family, and the Gracies are really big in jiu-jitsu, and because they're the reason it's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then you see that, this dude basically, there's also no gloves. They don't have gloves on, just as a little note. It's a bare knuckle event. He's literally hitting him in the back of the neck. That's now illegal.
That's some good old.
We don't have to continue watching because you kind of see how this is going to go. But
why is there a ref?
to pull him off, and
right?
So that was that sort of thing. Now we go to the next one, Vitor Belford versus Vandelay Silva.
What? Okay.
So now they have gloves at least, and the clothes are a little bit the same, but Vitor has shoes, and in this, he just walks across and beats the crap out of him. But he's literally wearing, I think, wrestling shoes or something like that.
Jesus. Fists of Fury.
Yep.
Wait, so he went into that fight knowing he couldn't use his feet, and his opponent's like, not gonna just guard my face and my body. He couldn't go for the legs. He couldn't.
Nope. He got absolutely beat the tar out of.
The man literally had 50% of his power and still beat the shit out of that guy.
But if you also notice, so the other guy with, they're not allowed now. They have like really short shorts, and they're all like it's all very uniform. It's because other people had used to be able to wear gis. So gis in martial arts is kind of like, it's used obviously to simulate clothing, and then for jujitsu and for judo, it's used as like grips and leverage, and you use the clothing as a weapon and as a holding point. Those obviously you can't use. They kind of unified the rules, they unified the dress code so that everybody kind of had to sit on equal footing. So the first fight that we watched with Yarborough and Hackney, that dude had like he got his wife beater ripped because he was, fighting a 600-pound dude.
Yeah, his wife beater was definitely the disadvantage there. I gotta say.
Very much so.
Now, we've kind of been talking, obviously, about the older side of the UFC. So now when we get into the newer side, I'd like to show you guys an interesting character and one that you guys might really enjoy. This is the current middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. We're going to look at his highlights here in a second, but let me tell you a little bit about him. He's from New Zealand. He's actually a Nigerian. His family was like immigrated from Nigeria. He took a lot of his like style and like his approach to things because of anime. And this is his highlights up to 2022. He's one of those entertainers, and he has this thing that they call God mode, where he's like, I unlock it like a video game, and then he just knows that he's like dominating and he will absolutely destroy you. And he's been reigning as the middleweight champ for about 3 years solid now.
Wow.
But yeah, no,
he's pretty consistent.
Yeah. He's more of a counter striker though, so he's really good at like people come in at him and he's able to like piece them apart and really destroy them that way. That's what he's best known for. He's won them by decision, but they're very boring fights. Was against Yoel Romero, who was a huge guy and really powerful, and another one against Anderson Silva, who is a really solid middleweight champion. And that wasn't as interesting. People kind of got on him, but it was because he was playing it safe and he wanted to win those. But usually, as you can see in these highlight reels, yeah, he did a little Naruto run there. Yeah, he really is.
He's really good at evading people.
That's the thing. He's sharp.
You can tell that he's really good at reading
kickboxer.
people.
How tall is he? Like 6'4"?
He's up there, yeah. And so this
his length to his advantage.
Yeah,
he does.
His weight class is 185 or 180 or whatever it is. He's middleweight, so.
Oh.
He really likes kicking people's legs out and like throwing them off balance.
Yeah, he's that's what he started as a kickboxer. I think he was in Glory Kickboxing.
That dude just did some mud wall jutsu.
Oh, all of these like highlights, like he's definitely just controlling the fight entirely. Like he's in like control the entire time, it looks like.
Let's go in the same video. If you're still there, go to 5:15. Okay, so this is him fighting Robert Whitaker. This is how he gained the title for the UFC middleweight championship. Whitaker is an Australian fighter, and he had been like a pretty dominant champion for the most part in the middleweight division until Israel Adesanya kind of had this humongous come up. Now let's pause it right here. This guy versus Costa, you see. So this is one of his more recent wins. Paulo Acosta was another one of those like humongous guys. He was like, I'm gonna beat him up, I'm super strong, I'll just knock out Adesanya. These two had probably the like fiercest like back and forth before a fight that I'd seen in a while, as far as like Adesanya, because he's pretty cocky, but most of his people or most of the opponents that he talks to aren't like firing back at him really. And Paulo Acosta kind of was, and he was kind of Acosta was coming off as like the bully, and Israel Adesanya absolutely just, you'll watch like when he first starts the fight, you'll see kind of like how confident Paulo kind of looks, and then by the end of it, you'll see like Israel Adesanya literally like basically fucks him in the ass, so to speak. This fight was a beat down. Yeah, so that was Paulo Acosta. All right, Cool. So now we're going to go to the best of Chael Sonnen. Now, he's a talker. He's a real good, slick speaker, and he's kind of hilarious. And that was really what people got in his good graces for. And now he's one of the better UFC. He's not a UFC commentator, but he's a UFC like news kind of pundit, I guess. And he's got a lot of great takes, I think. And he's a really well-spoken guy, and he's super entertaining. So let's just start up that video.
Well, I don't know anything about martial arts, but Steven Seagal would know a damn lot about behavior that's embarrassing to the human race. I was in Las Vegas when the Nogueira brothers first touched down in America. There was a bus that this is a true story. There was a bus that pulled up to a red light, and little Nog tried to feed it a carrot while Big Nog was petting it. He thought it was a horse. This really happened. Do you believe me that that happened?
Not really.
It's just like, it's never-ending entertainment. Like, I could watch these highlights pretty much all fucking night because he's just so slick on the, like, it's in the confidence, it's in like the snide remarks. So he likes to consider himself the bad guy. That was his moniker when he was fighting, or he was like that, or he was the gangster or something like that. I can't remember.
This is the truth. That was a misunderstanding of the rules. And the way I thought it worked was that if you tapped, you lost that round.
Yeah. So I don't know. We can pause it there because it'll just go on and on and on. Now we're gonna go to one of the greatest welterweights of all time, and in a lot of people's eyes, the GOAT of the sport. GSP's highlight, George St. Pierre. So he's a French Canadian. I believe he's started out in karate. Like, he's one of the best at all the disciplines. Right now, he's got the guy in like a sort of like he's going to like a triangle sort of, and an arm bar. That's quite a submission that he's got right there. Yep. He beats Matt Hughes right there.
He's like just solid muscle.
Dude,
Yeah.
straight up just solid muscle.
He's like a bulldog.
Oh yeah, so that's a Kimura that you're seeing.
Pit bull.
That's a jiu-jitsu move to a straight arm lock because he's rolling back, and then he turns it into a arm bar. Geez, that's really hardcore.
What an animal.
So now this is him against Huron. This is one of his best like knockouts too. I believe he actually he was a bad guy in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. If you go back and watch that, I believe he's in that movie.
Oh, that's cool. Fun fact. These are all fun facts.
What's his record?
I actually do not know that off the top of my head, but if you go to Sure Dog or whatever, it's there.
Ooh.
Good Lord.
You don't have to keep watching. That's just obviously going to continue on of him beating the little tar out of people. We'll go to now my next favorite. This guy, unfortunately, Cody Garbrandt, is not doing as hot in the division as he used to be, but right when I started watching it, he was on a tear. He ended up becoming the bantamweight champion. He was at one point super dominant, and he was a really quick, violent fighter.
It was pretty mouthy too, if I remember.
Yeah. I'm glad you know some of that.
Didn't him and Dillashaw go at it?
Yeah, because he was really, at that point he was really cocky, and then Dillashaw beat Garbrandt twice, each time in pretty spectacular, like knocked him out basically, or TKO'd him. Unfortunately, then Dillashaw got hit with using and performing enhancing drugs, and all his credibility went out of it's kind of like we lost both of them, because like TJ Dillashaw up to that point had been like really intense and really powerful and a really big staple of the bantamweight division.
Mm-hmm.
And then we lost him for a couple of years because he was on suspension because of that. And then Garbrandt was just losing fights, and it was just a bad time. But at this point, you can really see that Garbrandt's super crisp and like just dangerous on the feet. He's knocking these guys out so intently that the ref really has to like throw him off of them. We can stop. We don't have to watch the rest of that there.
Like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. We'll also go to Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy Cerrone literally just retired, but he was he had, I think, one of the most fights in the UFC or something like that, or most wins in the UFC. I can't remember which one it was, but this is one of his best combos and most like dominant performances. You watched him just absolutely combo. That was like a video game.
Dude. Yeah, I was like, just, wow.
So that's another good example of a dangerous fighter there. So now we come to the Q&A section of this fun, exciting adventure of ours. I don't know if you have any questions regarding anything about like weight classes or how it's scored or what fighting styles or whatever.
So coming as somebody who knows pretty much nothing about UFC, like how many different weight classes are there and what are they?
We have 4 women's weight classes. So we have the smallest one that be
featherweight, right?
So that's going to be 145. That's going to be 140 pounds or 145 pounds or whatever I don't know how they necessarily determine it. It's usually like, so there's the straw weight, which would be, I think, 105 for women's. And then there's the women's flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight. And it goes, I believe, one straw weight would be 115. And then it would be the flyweight, the women's flyweight, 125, bantamweight, 135, and featherweight, 145. So those are the 4 female, I guess, weight classes. Then you go into the men's, which would be, it starts at flyweight, which is 125, then bantamweight, 135, 145 would be featherweight, lightweight is 155. They don't have a 165 pound division, but that's, everybody always wants one, and it's a lot of controversy behind that. 175 or 170 is a welterweight. 180 to 185, I think, is middleweight. Light heavyweight is next at 205, and then heavyweight is like pretty much anything up from there. I think it's like it goes up to like 285 is the highest, I believe, that they go.
Okay, so like, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But like a 235 could be against a 275.
Okay.
In that weight class, but everybody else is determined by like 5 pounds or more or less.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I'd let you continue because you just answered my next question. I was gonna be like, so like they're allowed, you said 5 pounds between that. So
kind of, it's like 170 to yeah. And for the most part, it's just so it's called making weight, and there's different approaches to that sort of thing. It's kind of strange, I'll be honest. It's like some people have to bulk up to get to their weight class because they're like naturally a 135 pounder, but they fight at 145 or something like that.
Somebody like my weight who would probably,
you'd probably be like a flyweight or
because I'm like around 142.
Yeah. See that, or you could cut weight and you could be in a bantamweight at 135. So
I think the healthier thing would be definitely to gain the weight. I feel like it's like
it kind of depends on the
easier
body
to gain the weight, but yeah, like for me, it's damn hard to gain weight.
Yeah, and it's weight cutting, especially if you're going down a weight. It's really about dehydrating your body, and there's a lot of.
And that's not good for
your
kidneys.
That's when you get people.
And that's something that I would have to avoid if I were to do this. But I've already hit my head too many times. We don't need to do that.
Yeah. That's why you like to watch it, not participate.
Exactly. Yeah. No, definitely. I could definitely see myself getting more into this because it's definitely entertaining, and learning more about it is definitely big.
It's modern day gladiators, but it's also really interesting because now, from what it started out as that freak show sort of thing where you saw like that 600-pound dude, just wailing on a smaller dude, and then the smaller dude using his leverage to kind of get around that. It's kind of come down to now, instead of just being a bunch of different fighters of different backgrounds, they've all kind of, I don't want to say homogenized, but you got to there's many aspects you have to have to your game. You obviously have to have your gas tank in check. You have to make sure that you're actually like, if you're going to fight on the feet, that you know where to fight and how to fight, and like the range and the I guess the difference in different fighting styles that you're going to come across, because like somebody who stands a certain way has an ability to take you out than somebody else. And so every time you get in there with somebody new, you really got to keep advancing, you got to keep your guard up essentially, because, that's one of the more entertaining things about this is that, for hockey, it's like, okay, well, you have to wait until, bad example, I guess, probably more like something slower like baseball or something. But you have a sport where it could be over in the first 10 seconds, or it could drag out and you could see like a hard fought battle or just a really boring thing. But anything could happen in those 5, 15 minutes, full rounds or entire fights.
No, absolutely. I mean, the best way to put, like, could compare it to hockey, but instead of being like the beginning, it's the last, 2 minutes of hockey.
Yeah,
If it's a tied game, the last 2 minutes is the most intense. And personally, I think it's some of the most intense, especially when it comes down to playoff hockey. The last 2 minutes of a playoff
then you have
hockey
to have
game,
a sudden
if
death.
the score is tied, is just insane. They're pushing they're giving their hardest because they want to win. And it's just creates some of the most intense and just exciting plays. And I can definitely see that, from some of those highlight clips, some of those guys just going in right off the bat. That's honestly, it's really badass. Yeah.
So Pat, what kind of martial arts do you know?
I know, as far as it goes, I was trained in classically in Taekwondo, which is where I learned a lot of my form and stuff, which is where my kicks come from. But I have been training the last 5-6 years in jiu-jitsu, which is my background, I'd say.
Is jiu-jitsu really hard to get into? Is it more mental, or is it form?
It is. I'd say
it's the toughest part?
I'd say it's probably mental. I think that the biggest thing about it is that what I like is it's not a striking art. It's all about grappling and learning. There's positions in it that kind of help you. They're like pillars. They're like, I know where to go when I'm in this position, or when something's happening. I know the 4 places I want to be, and giving you a goal in a way is really probably the best thing. The challenging bit is actually getting into a gym, because there's a lot of different types of gyms and lots of different ways. I personally liked the one that I was in when I was in Colorado, because it was kind of a mom and pop shop. When I say that, it was it's this guy who has been a martial artist his entire life, and then his wife, and they both were kind of having a family, and they started, just wanted to start this business and teach jiu-jitsu, and they're black belts and really good at it. So I started learning with them, and it was kind of it was a smaller environment, a really small school. So I was able to come in and learn pretty personally with the teacher, because sometimes you have classes of 40 plus people. There's and everybody's just drilling with everybody else. Yeah, there's a lot of, or not necessarily, but you can't get a lot of one-on-one with the instructors and stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're dealing more with people who don't have that initial hands-on experience and years of practice. It's
you're
nice to be able to learn and be able to have that interaction with that teacher. I understand what you're saying.
And there's also
the same with an acting class. If you're in an acting class that has 45 people, you're going to get a lot less on screen time, no matter how long the class is each week. That's any class that's between 15 to 20 people is going to be more intimate. Even I guess sometimes I'd have classes with 5 people, and those are the best. You get an hour and a half with 5 people. You're getting so much hands-on time. So those smaller classes and dojos and things like that are it's cool. The mom and pop, it's great, because you really feel like you're getting that real experience. They know that they've been there, they've done that. I'm doing a great job describing it, but I don't know, it's more reassuring.
And
you get to really interact with them, as opposed to a big name brand.
Kind of. And especially with these guys, it was nice to get in there, because at one, I didn't have any grappling. I'd wrestled around with my dad because he'd done some of that, but it wasn't a very big part of the what I was used to. And the other thing too is that you'll be very intimate with people. You're going to be getting smashed on top of them. You're going to be, they're going to be sitting on you, trying to like crush your windpipe and stuff. Basically, it's simulated murder, like over and over again. Because if you get into blood chokes, you're literally like cutting off somebody's
circulation.
and doing all that. So, and the other thing too is that you're gonna get smashed. You're gonna get your ass whooped, and you have to be able to like mentally take that. There's a lot of people who went in there, and they'd get tired. And one of my favorite things was breaking people, and you could tell they were getting so tired. And like, I wasn't very offensive. There's a lot of people who are just like, they're on top of you immediately, and they're trying to choke you, and you're constantly fighting the arms and trying to get different positions, and you're basically working from your back the whole time while they're trying to smash the crap out of you. And then you can just feel them start to like break down, and it's like, oh, they're not holding on to me as hard, or they're giving up positions that they used to. And then you get on top of them, and you could feel, and you hear them breathing, and you wrap your arm around their neck, and they start to, it's a good feeling.
Your face, you're just,
it's a good, it's
the joy that brings you.
It sucks a little bit because
I understand.
I've been on the other end of that too, where I've been like, really fighting, and I can't do it, and I just can't. You're sick to your stomach, and everything's so hot, and all you smell is blood and sweat.
Oh,
and just and like
been there.
and so
woken up in a pool of woken up like foaming at my mouth. I've done that before.
I don't know.
I've been
So
choked out.
it's definitely one of those things that is quite the learning curve, so to speak, I guess. And that's probably one of the harder things to do, is you have to be ready to do that and get your ass handed to you. And like, the other thing too is that, I in the beginning wasn't as, I was athletic, and I was like pretty young, and I thought I would be able to like just jump in there, and I did get in there and get after it. But at the same time, I was also like, I started getting hurt right away because I was overextending myself, because I wasn't, there's certain
working into it. Yeah.
There's also like different, I don't know, it kind of comes with doing it a while. You kind of know how to mitigate certain things. Like I like did something to I pulled something in my arm, and I did a bunch of like, I would have all these bruises along me because people are literally digging their elbows or their knees into you, or like their head and their chest. And like, if you're also like, it's called
trying to give out too much power or something like that, you're overexerting yourself.
Yeah. There's like white belts. There's something that they do a lot, which is called spazzing out. And it's kind of like when you don't know what you're kind of freak out. You're like, I'm getting attacked or whatever. And you jerk your head up, or you throw your elbow back, and it like, because this whole thing's not about like actual contact, and like people get clipped, and like you also got to deal with people like freaking out and smashing your face or doing things that, obviously
because I'd be getting choked out, definitely.
Right. And it happens.
I didn't know it was going to happen, and I just woke up next to a tree. So now I probably have some panic when people go to choke me out.
Yeah,
I don't know how me learning jiu-jitsu would go.
It's also, there's like a flow with it too. It is just like you learn how to move, and it's a whole thing. But so that's that.
So Pat, champions get paid a shit ton in both contracts, endorsements, and sponsorships. What is the actual pay of like a UFC fighter who's just starting out? Do they usually have to pay up front for like all their gym costs and all that kind of shit?
Yeah, so you get paid. There's a win bonus, there's win bonuses, and then there's like to fight. So usually, and it's probably varied now, but it's usually 15 to 20,000, 25,000 to like show up for like low tier, people to show up, and then they basically win the same amount. So it's like you show for 25 and then you win for 25 or something along those lines.
Okay.
That's how it usually works.
Is there like a minor league for the UFC?
So they have things that get you into the UFC. There's other promotions that also technically pay, but they're smaller. But you can get into the UFC a couple of ways. There's like they have the Ultimate Fighter series, which is like the UFC's, for lack of better, it's like a reality show.
Yeah, I saw that. Isn't that what Dillashaw and that Bradley guy was on.
Yeah, and that's
I was gonna say, I could see that.
so basically it's these two, they take two UFC fighters that they want to be like the main stars or whatever, and they'll have them coach a bunch of like up and comers, and then those up and comers between the, it's like they fight the other guys, on the other teams as they're all training and working out. Cause a lot of it is there's so much actual training that goes into fighting. But yeah, that's the Ultimate Fighters one way. There's Dana White's Contender Series. There's other promotions that people usually get signed on from. The women a lot of them come from like Invicta or the PFL. Some get traded or not traded, but I guess picked up from Bellator and things like that. Like we just got Michael Chandler in the lightweight division. He came from Bellator, and there's been a Ben Askren was one, but he didn't do so
Was
hot.
that just like a limited time promo event or something like that, or is it a series of fights?
Which one?
Bellator.
Oh, Bellator is like a promotion itself. It's like another UFC.
Okay.
It's kind of like the second tier one. UFC is like the pivotal.
Yeah. Where everybody goes to get paid and get their name out there, and
yeah, it's the bigger promotion there. But yeah, so then champions obviously get, I think the biggest thing for champions is that they get a cut of the pay-per-view or whatever they get, and they also are at the more high paying events, so they usually get I think they make over at least $1 million to show. I don't know 100%. I'll be honest, it's kind of back
out
down there.
Hit or miss,
Yeah,
probably,
but the top
for each person and what their agent, negotiates. But
and it's like contract based and stuff like that. And obviously, like the more star power, like there's Sean O'Malley, who's a really big star, and he's probably getting paid a good amount just to show up and fight because he's been on like the main cards and things like that. He's one of those.
You're a bigger
ones.
Name, you're gonna draw a bigger crowd, they're gonna pay you more.
Yeah, so
it's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, you kind of got some leverage that way.
Your sports team wins the finals or the championship next season. Those tickets are going to cost a lot.
Yeah. And then with obviously most of it, as Marcus was kind of saying though, is like you do have to upfront your costs for the most part, which is why for a smaller fighter, it's kind of like you really want to win those things. And they have bonuses too, like on top of like, say that you are a smaller fighter and you're only making 15,000 to show up and 15,000 to win, you're only getting 30,000 out of that. I mean, you're able to technically they offer you 3 fights a year is what the UFC does for the most part. So you could technically be making decent money, but you have to, that's if you're winning. If you're only like losing every time and you're only making 15 to show, like the thing is you're paying for basically your training, then you're also bringing people to corner you. It's kind of like a whole event to go out to a UFC, depending on where you go to. You gotta
probably funding,
yeah, and so it kind of is. It's kind of a strain on you if you don't have all of that. And I mean, the good news is that the UFC provides a lot of medical stuff and things like that on a lot of levels, and you're obviously, put up somewhere nice, and you're trying to, work. But at the same time, it's, at the end of the day, then you make, even if you do win a lot, or you like fight twice a year and you win both times, you're only making like, at 15 and 15, you're only making like what, $60,000, which even, it's still good, but you're still training like hours and hours a day, 5 days a week, probably.
Not to mention, travel, everything.
Yeah.
And
and
your
then
body
you have
getting
to do
beat to shit.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
really
you're
the biggest
really
thing.
breaking your body doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a passion for those people. So
yeah. Yeah.
What would you say you think the most exciting like weight classes to watch for men and women?
Okay, so your best ones are probably going to be
the most exciting, I guess.
I'd say right in the middle. So anywhere from, for women, it would probably be the flyweight and the bantamweight, which is 125 and 135 are really solid because they've had some really dominant champions, and it's also like it's where your mobility is the most flexible, but you also have the knockout power in women.
Yeah, you've got some weight behind the throw.
And so the best ones usually come out of there. The 2 current champions, I believe, is Valentina Shevchenko for 125, and then Amanda Nunes just reclaimed her title at 135. But she's also the double champ because she's also the champ at 130 or 145. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Nice.
That's cool.
And my final question was going to be, who do you think is the GOAT, Pat?
Oh no.
Like any division, and I don't care. Like it could even be your favorite UFC warrior.
Oh man, that's so hard. A lot of people, there's so many because especially now, like the GOAT question is so hard. I think that my favorite is probably going to have to be, I'd say GSP. He was the OG, like nice guy / like really well-disciplined warrior, I guess, He came from a karate background, but he was really good at jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and he was also honest. He used to be like, I'm scared to fight. Like I'm always scared, like it's terrifying, but just the fact that he would be able to still go out there and do it has always been impressive. So let's go actually back to my little note. Just go to the one that down, it's close to the bottom. It's just called GSP Being Nice YouTube.
Sorry, I'm late. I had to get some stitches. They give me some stitches, but I didn't want to miss this.
I wouldn't like to do that fight again. Oh, sorry I don't want to swear on TV. Sorry.
But
martial art is not about who got the biggest balls. Sorry for my language. What is going on with him? What is happening with you? My God.
But it's
your grandma's favorite.
It's like WWE.
Yeah.
We're not in WWE.
Are you intoxicated or something?
Is that all you got?
That's why you
got
some sunglasses?
Is that the only line you've got?
Are you intoxicated?
Are you intoxicated?
I'm very glad you won that fight, Matt. But I'm not impressed by your performance.
GSP, he's kind of like, the super nice guy, but
I was
also,
gonna say, dude, he's got to be French Canadian.
oh yeah, he is. He's so funny.
Oh yeah, respectable.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one name I definitely knew throughout this whole ordeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime I played MMA, I played him. I
Um,
looked up where George St. Pierre is from. I didn't guess it. I was going to guess it, and I should have just guessed it and trusted my
Montreal.
gut because I knew his accent. No, where do you think he's from? Marcus?
Quebec.
He's from Quebec, eh? Gonna go over there to Quebec.
Shout out the Nordiques.
Yeah.
Hey, it's wrong hat. It's the New Jersey Devil.
Right.
But then just the last little
Or
fun fact before we wrap this
Avalanche.
puppy up here. If you want to go to the last one, the Friends Pete, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And this is just kind of funny, just in regards for you, Jake, obviously.
I've got an advertisement. I was like, is this the Star Wars man?
Yes, in fact.
John Favreau?
He was
I
actually
like, I saw
in
that name and I was like, man, what?
he was in Friends, but in Friends they actually went to the UFC, and that is Bruce Buffer.
Bruce Buffer looks so young.
Yeah, he is, because it's like I think the 90s or early 2000.
Wow.
But yeah, so literally they used the UFC as one of the props in the story things for that, and Jon Favreau is the guy who's going out to fight.
Oh my gosh.
I thought you might like this, Jake.
That's fantastic.
And Tank Out is actually one of the
dude looks
OG
like a
greats
monster.
of UFC.
I've seen that. I've seen him before too, definitely. I did not know he was in Friends. That's funny.
Yep. That's also Big John McCarthy, which is the one of the original and best UFC referees ever. Yep, poor Jon Favreau. Anyway,
Get me
that
right.
is that.
Beautiful.
And I hope you enjoyed that video.
I definitely enjoyed that. That was funny.
Yep. So that is the UFC.
If I ever meet Jon Favreau, I'm not going to ask him a Star Wars question. I'm going to ask him about his experience on Friends.
Yeah.
Throw him a curveball from left field or a left hook.
Yeah, dude, or a right hook, whichever stance
Right
you're
hook.
best at. You want to close it out there, Jake?
Yeah, of course. Brain fart. Good job. All right. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Fandom Podcast. I am your co-host tonight, RJ Skeens. We've got our host
Patrick Jorgenson.
And our co-host
Marcus Laurienti.
If you want to follow us on social media, you can follow the podcast at The Fandom Pod. If you want to follow me on Instagram or social media, it's at RJ_Skeens. Other way, that way.
All right.
Yeah,
my social
down
is
the line.
Strafe Surge on everything: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch.
Strafe Surge on everything.
On it all.
He also said it right this time. I'm
Right.
Pat. I do things.
You have a podcast.
I do. It is Skeptical Eye for the Paranormal Guys. We put stuff out every once in a while. Instagram, Skeptical Eye for Paranormal Guys. 4. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for checking us out, guys. If you want to send us any recommendations, you can shoot us an email at fandompod343@gmail.com or just leave a comment below.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
But you won't, so don't do it.
You're gonna let Pat be right?
Reverse psychology.
Is it working?
Is it working?
We'll
Is it
see
working?
next
Did you do
episode.
it?
We'll see. Yeah, do it,
Do it?
and then we'll talk about it next
I think we
episode,
got like
everybody.
7 or 8. So
I
let's
dare you.
I dare you to do it.
Yeah, and if you don't, you are the worst.